Since it still is Black History Month, hello, happy Juneteenth, I want to talk about some of my favorite Black authors. Specifically, I mean, it is a series, I have a lot of books here, but I think I want to use my account to talk about stuff that I want to see and talk about, because it's my account and I think you should post what you want to see. And I think that's the whole point about journaling, because if I want to journal, I want to journal properly. Like, I know writing stuff is good as well, but like, I want to actually talk about stuff, and I think talking about stuff helps me understand it a lot more, because even critical thinking, it's very lacking, specifically in the UK right now. Like, you see all these writers saying like, oh my god, what they're actually writing, and I think a lot of people don't even know what they're actually writing about, because when you actually think about it, that's not the point. Anyway, what I mean is, Toni Morrison is one of my favorite authors. I think I have been watching a lot of documentaries. I would say probably tens of 20 not documentaries, I mean interviews of her speaking. I've never actually encountered a person that speaks so intentionally, with such a grace, boldness, expression, deliberateness, everything I want to be. I think watching interviews, I think the way I want to conduct myself, the way I want to come across is so evident to me, and I find it genuinely, I would say, beyond inspirational, because when I'm actually watching Toni Morrison speak, I'm left not only with a sense of awe, but it's devastatingly beautiful to watch that, because in my opinion, it's not only an act of defiance against generalization stereotypes that Black women face every day in America and also the UK, because I think a lot of people don't realize that UK is kind of the leader in imperialism, specifically in recent history. Very recent history. Very recent. Anyway, another point again. What I mean is, you will find that the way she holds herself is hauntingly beautiful, because she's very deliberate with her words. Her entire demeanor is a contradiction to people who have zero critical thinking, and yeah, whose thoughts and views are very much shaped by imperial propaganda. I think that's the word that I think that's what I'm looking for. What I mean by that, you see it a lot in her interviews. A lot of her interviewers are very microaggressive is the right word, but it's not even that, it's more than that, because yeah, they aren't really interested in even interviewing her. It's more, they want to, in a sense, get an upper hand. You see a lot, specifically with like, I can name 4 of the interviews that I've seen, where they're like rushing questions, won't let her answer, but it's the way she deals with those circumstances, with those microaggressions, that really makes me inspired, because she's answering exactly how you wouldn't expect it. Like, it's in defiance not only to the way they are programmed to expect her to be, but it's in defiance of imperialism, in my opinion. And I think that's her entire point itself, because she's very, very, very deliberate in the way she conveys herself, not only in her facial expressions, body language, and her speech, but also her ideas and critical thinking is very out there. Like, even for me, I find it wow. Yeah, wow, genuinely. What I'm basically talking about is a specific interview that she's doing with this lady, and the lady is, I don't even know where she was going with this question, but she asks her, will you incorporate white characters in your stories in a substantial way? First of all, okay, it's a very I mean, if I'm honest, if you ask certain people, you'd think, oh yeah, that's an innocent question, you know, because why shouldn't you? But Toni Morrison says to her, first of all, she starts answering very composed, like, yeah, it's a very racist question, because the whole point of Toni Morrison's books is to highlight the Black experience, specifically in America itself, but not in a way that's like main focus on brutality, because there is that itself, because being that in America also does mean you are going to face brutality. It's just a reality, it goes hand in hand. But I think the way Toni rephrases it is really something else, because her response is more that you will never understand how racist that question is, because whiteness is always the center, you know, in every story. Why is it that whiteness should be the center in her black stories, you know? Because even if you consider world maps, like, they are all, the main focus is on Europe, like that's the magnified bit, because a lot of people don't realize that it's enlarged, specifically because, again, you can't incorporate genuine, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's along those lines of being like, you can't accurately portray all the continents, all the, I think you probably could, if I'm honest. I don't know much about maps, but every world map that you know has a enlargement. So Europe isn't actually that big in maps, is made to look bigger than it is. And like the other continents, specifically the global south, is a lot smaller than it needs to be. Like you'll see it with Greenland, it's not that big. It's not that big. Like, it's not that big. Anyway, yeah, but it's always the center of, why is it that she expects Toni Morrison to write about whiteness as the center? Toni Morrison's entire motto, you could say, is writing about blackness as the center and not the other way around, because she wants to stray as much away from the white gaze as possible. And I think in order to do that, you have to, it's a very crazy thing to do, but I think a lot of people are probably not going to understand that either. Yeah, there was so much other stuff as well, but I feel like the way she presents herself is a direct contradiction, because in media or the global west, you have this stereotype of people being a certain way, but I think her contradiction is a huge thing, not only because a lot of reasons, but the main one for me, it's more that she's not rowdy, she doesn't like express herself in any way that isn't graceful, elegant, eloquent. It's a very deliberate, like, she doesn't get angry, frustrated with all these stupid questions, because I think she understands that you have to be a certain way to be taken seriously, specifically if you look a certain way. And it's mainly because there are stereotypes that do shape and generalize a lot of communities, and they are all on the basis of the color of your skin or your features. What I mean by that is black and brown people are more likely to be, you know, systematically, targeted? Like, yeah, institutionally targeted for like criminal system itself, education, healthcare, like not being taken seriously in a lot of ways. And even like stealing, you see a lot, like, I mean, the amount of times I've been followed in shops as well, and it's crazy considering that as well. But when you think about it, there is a specific group, specifically, you know, there's a specific continent that's been known in very recent history to be the cause of countless genocides, with millions of people, looting of entire countries, cultures, devastation, having human zoos until the 1900s. Yeah, and it's all Europe. But you don't see those generalizations of those stereotypes of being looters, colonizers, enslavers being ever used on those people. And I really do wonder why, because stereotypes don't really shape you unless you are from the global south. which again goes hand in hand into the direct. I think a lot of people again also don't realize that colonialism was very, very, very deliberate. Very deliberate. There's no way none of it was deliberate. And all these stereotypes that we know for today, for affecting every single person of the global majority or the global south, stems from colonialism, because race as a construct is not even a thing, specifically for humans, because there is one human race. How can there be different branches of that race? You can't reproduce and have like a good genetic match. You would need to have the same genetic makeup because you are the same race. Like, otherwise you would have like, you know, deformities, or like you can, or like offspring can't reproduce because it's a different race. You see it with like lions and tigers, their cubs or whatever. But I think that same argument is used a lot because it's ethnicities, but there is one human race because we are all Homo sapiens. There's no such thing as like different races, and it's a very institutional thing itself, like the whole concept of race, and why it's such a big deal, you know, to everywhere, like globally now. It is a very big issue, like specifically now. But I think it only serves to work alongside institutions like capitalism, imperialism, to convey the same message by the authoritative higher powers. And I know a lot of what I'm saying is gonna go over a lot of people, because you do see this on the internet specifically a lot, where it's like cope, or it was a long time ago, but you know, if you're being targeted every day because you look a certain way, or you're more likely to be given a higher sentence in the UK as well. UK and America's like yeah, I think you can talk about America for like days, but I'm talking about more UK itself, because when you look at institutionally, black and brown people are known to be given longer prison sentences and harsher punishments compared to their white counterparts in the UK. And also, black individuals are disproportionately targeted to stop and search and use of force more than any other people in the UK, which again says a lot, like, because there's not enough representation even in those things. And healthcare, black and brown women are more likely to be told that they are exaggerating symptoms, not being taken seriously, because again, it's a very stereotyping or generalizing thing. Like, even in textbooks, I can't remember exactly where it was. There's a lot of things that are like, when you read about it, you're like, that's absolutely crazy. Education itself, and employment, housing and homelessness. So deeply rooted structural issues create unequal living conditions. Research by Crisis reveals that Black and South Asian families are up to 7 times more likely to live in overcrowded conditions than white households, highlighting severe discrimination within statutory support systems. Like, this is, again, the whole thing was like slums itself, because the whole point of slums is to entrap like specific people. For example, where I live, Handsworth, very passionate about that. What you see is, I'm just looking at specific research from Guru Nanak Nishkam Sevak Jatha website, where they did a study on the history of Handsworth. 1 second. Right, okay. Right, okay, so it says here, in the late 1960s, 20 to 25% of Handsworth's population was made up of Black and South Asian households. Increasingly, Handsworth became home to people of West Indian and Punjabi origins, whereas other parts of Birmingham's middle rich, such as Boltall Heath, Small Heath, and Spark Hill, display different demographic characteristics with large minorities of Pakistani and Bangladeshis. In the 1940s, 1970s, people of Indian Caribbean origin had secured unskilled and semi-skilled work in Birmingham's booming metal bashing trades. 1960s, Victoria's Conservative Party campaign against anti-immigration ticket Rivers of Blood speech. Yeah, Birmingham as well as elsewhere minorities and but it's a very deliberate thing. It's what it basically means. Like a lot of times what you find is people are shoved into so-called slums, and there's always riots, especially race riots. It's a very British thing to go on a race riot whenever you feel like you're not having enough of I feel like people are just bored, because I don't even think they understand the reasoning for their riots. Because is it really immigration that you're afraid of? How is immigration impacting the way you are holding yourself? I don't think immigration is the problem itself. That's coming from an immigrant, I guess, but what I mean more is people don't even understand their own imperial decree and the country's imperial history. So how is it that you're passionate about your patriotism when your cities are literally built on slavery and colonization? Like, entire institutions are upkept to keep that same system of race even a thing when it isn't. There's one such thing as a human race. If you think otherwise, if you believe that you are above a singular person or a race, if you think the way you look is better, there's something quite wrong with you. Like, genuinely, it's a very, there's something wrong with you, genuinely. Like, that's a skill issue. But I think it's more in the sense that it's not even ignorance, because I think there are resources out there for people who actually want them. I feel like if I can learn it, anyone else can as well. It's more of a superiority thing, because you want to be better than anyone else. If we're all the same, then we'll make you better than other people. I don't know, but I think a lot of people, the problem with race riots is people believe that they deserve better than other people. They feel like people being given the same freedoms as them is somehow making their freedoms lesser than. Same with like civil rights movements and also women's freedom, voting, like feminism itself, like second wave in America, how that in its own kind of disproportionately always forgets women of color itself. So the fight for equal rights, even though it's segregated, I find that quite interesting. Yeah, but I think that's all I gotta say for now. Yeah.